My name is Zahar Karetsky, and this is the Transitions Visions podcast, a podcast series about and for the sustainability transitions community. Today I want to share with you my conversation with Vlasta Sikimić, who is my colleague in Eindhoven University of Technology. And we talked about educational innovations. Vlasta's expertise is on transitions in use of AI in education, and I contributed to the discussion with my empirical knowledge of sustainability transitions in education, which is my current project. A lot of us in the transitions community teach students and have no doubt encountered these two topics. And these two topics happen to be also on the forefront of educational innovations. So sustainability, integration of sustainability is a big topic in universities, as well as how to tackle the opportunities and the dangers of AI and large language models. So, using our respective expertise, me and Vlasta, we had a discussion that hopefully would be interesting to you. It was definitely interesting for us. And this episode is also a rare occasion where I myself talk about a part of my current research. Normally, I only interview people, I talk to others. But this is a bit different, and I definitely was feeling a bit out of my comfort zone. But at least I got to showcase how I'm currently applying transitions theory in practice. So please enjoy and make sure to reach out on Twitter or other socials. A personal story. And this is not something that nobody knows. This is quite already common, but I experienced it myself. So a couple of decades ago, so my family has a country house, and I used to, when I was little, I would always be annoyed by insects, by these little ants and grasshoppers and mosquitoes, all of them, and they would crawl over everybody who would, well, especially me, because maybe I was so small and everybody wanted to bite me. I was always, I was thinking, how can we, maybe there's going to be a technology that can shield me from insects or something like that. And now, several decades ahead, when I'm visiting that country house, the amount of insects has declined drastically, and what I get is mostly mosquitoes, actually. And this is directly linked to biodiversity loss and the effects of climate change, the effects of plastic pollution, microplastics specifically. At Eindhoven, I am researching, and this is kind of an action research as well. We're trying to integrate sustainability in education, in higher education. And especially in engineering education, it is an additional challenge or additional incentive. So that's how it was my interest in sustainability, and particularly sustainability in education and education of engineers.
Yeah, the other thing that everyone is talking about in our department is what we do with all of our students increasingly using ChatGPT in their homework, also overwriting what we are teaching them, telling us, look, ChatGPT gave this answer, it knows better. How do we now assess them? Is the assessment changing because of it? How do we now grade students with this? How much do we need human intervention in this situation? And one first reaction to that challenge is, let's just ban use of AI to students. But that doesn't lead us very far, because students will in any case use it later in their work, and we have to somehow train them to use it efficiently and to develop the skills that are necessary for the future. what happens, of course, when we are talking about the use of AI in education, it does come apart from the challenge of how do we integrate it better in our curricula, which we will talk about today. There is another question, and that's how do we make it just and correct. And there I can share a story. When I was attending one advisory meeting among ministries, local ministry of Baden-Württemberg state in Germany, and the school teachers there, educational experts. I was there from the perspective of philosophy and ethics, discussing what we do about the use of AI in education. That was even when ChatGPT was not developed on that level, but we from COVID-19 pandemic learned that the use of AI is very powerful in education. We discussed also the resources needed to implement any improvement measure of that sort, because there is a huge potential in automated feedback, quick feedback, using all these powerful tools. And then what happened was a discussion on how do we have that every student has a tablet and access to tablet, and teachers were complaining that they get 20 tablets per classroom or something like that, and then kind of how do they update softwares and so on. And I told them, well, look, I come from Southern Eastern Europe, Southeast Europe, and there we have 0 tablets per student, which is a problem. And in some parts of the world, you have even less access to any hardware even. And there, apart from the injustices that happen within the AI itself, we are getting these injustices that happen because of the hardware usage in different countries.
So in the class, injustices in the classroom, depending on who has these devices and who doesn't.
Exactly. So who will get this training for the future skill that we think is so valuable? And there I think these two topics intersect in a way, because they are both connected. They will both differently affect different parts of the world. And the responsibility is on us to seek some justice for that situation and to make students aware of this in order to responsibly both use and create sustainable solutions and create and use AI solutions.
I want to ask you how in Eindhoven University or in general in higher education, how do you think this issue of AI use could be tackled from your perspective?
From my perspective, we should definitely try to implement it and to make students use it.
So ChatGPT,
ChatGPT is questionable because the data is not safely stored. And there are these regulations that say, of course, education is a high-risk topic, high-risk field for the implementation of AI. And we have to be very careful about the students' data security. However, there are other systems which don't share what's being uploaded to them, or also some locally stored solutions and so on. So that, but I would definitely go into the direction of showing and teaching students what are the limits of this technology and how to develop skills to address this technology, how to be intellectually open to technology, but also critical towards it. And when you are critical towards it, to which aspects you should be critical. So at the moment, I have a tiny grant from our department to do the innovation in teaching, where we will explore how we can practice intellectual humility towards the input that comes from the AI. So there we will discuss that AI is not always transparent, that we should trust more experts than AI, even though AI has this huge potential, how AI is best integrated, and to understand what is the concept of an algorithmic bias, to understand the biases in data come from the fact where the data is collected. If the data is not representative of all, are not representative of all the parts of the world, then this data will be biased.
And I suppose that the teachers also could benefit from getting training on how to use large language models.
Indeed, that's also something which is being done, and also is being done on the practical aspect, because a lot of teachers don't experiment with large language models while others do, and you can very easily make a curriculum syllabus for your course. You can create very good exam questions, especially if you are focusing on a topic which has been not so new. So there are a lot of resources that algorithms are already trained on. You can also ask the algorithm to constructively align all that, and which is a concept from the educational theory. So how do you want your learning goals and learning outcomes to be matched with your assessment methods and so on. And in addition to that, if it's a newer topic, you can upload papers on this topic and ask AI to create both the exam questions or to include this new topic in your new syllabus. So we do lack some type of a digital critical thinking component in addition to that, and this is this was how we use it. But then this other aspect, how do we critically reflect on the AI that we use? And because human always has to decide, what is this content good or not. In some maybe far distant future, when we are having AI generating the programs that are that are even maybe my avatars, creating the whole program and writing in my writing style, maybe it will really get much closer to that, and I could rely on it more. However, it might also hinder diversity. It might also enforce me to think in a certain way, and otherwise I would think in more creative ways. So the normative questions, and when I say normative, I don't only mean ethics, I also mean normative from the perspective of what are our goals in learning, what do we want to prescribe as a learning goal, what is good for us intellectually. In that aspect, so what is good, that's something that humans always have to decide and cannot be reduced to AI.
I hope that your vision prevails in how AI is treated because then it all sorts of problems with labor and with jobs and quality of education as well. If this what you're describing doesn't happen, arise. But I can tell you how in my end of the group, what we are discussing in terms of education innovations. So there, the issue is with sustainability, and particularly how to foster critical engagement, how to foster political, how to help students, and in our case it's engineering students, understand better the political, ethical and societal implications of their work, of their engineering when they graduate. And we do that we adopt this transitions perspective, a perspective from transition studies, which in applied sense comes down to two approaches. One is doing things better, and another is doing better things. So doing things better is optimization pathway. It's doing things better in the sense that you will continue what you are doing as an engineer, as a professional, you're applying the solutions that are more or less well known, that are predictable, and that are aligned with the paradigm of your field, of your discipline. But transitions theory says that it's not. The change can be possible with this kind of thinking, with doing things better. Change is possible, definitely, but it's not enough for a kind of change that is needed to tackle climate change and the related challenges of biodiversity loss and social inequality. And then the alternative is transformative change, which is doing better things. So it's rethinking what you're doing, reflecting on it, and changing ultimately. Yeah.
Interestingly, this framework of the intellectual virtues that I kind of try to introduce without the big words, and this to teach someone how to be humble, open, and how to interact with different technologies and with different challenges that society is bringing to us, tells you how to optimize your intellectual position and your intellectual stances.
Yeah, I want to hear more now.
I just think that it tells you that one shouldn't be neither too skeptical to technology nor too accepting of technology. That has to be some golden middle in between these two paths. But then it also intersects with the other intellectual virtues, and approaching the challenges that come from the sustainability challenge also makes sense to kind of say there are different ways of thinking. However, one has to be, as a good engineer, one has to understand different perspectives and try to optimize these perspectives. So for me, it's very intuitive what you're saying, that exactly. The optimization question is the one that's intellectually meaningful, and training oneself to do that type of thinking, even for our own sake as a skill, it will be very valuable for the future development of technology.
Do you think this kind of framework that you are describing is being implemented in higher education?
No, I think it's something that's insufficiently implemented, right. But it's something also relatively new.
Right.
And that's where I see the potential. And there are certain studies coming from the positive psychology and coming from the philosophy, and we're trying to merge them. I also work on that field. They are the path forward potentially.
The reason why challenges are such a big problem in transition studies is and related to education is because these big challenges like climate change and biodiversity loss and global inequality, they have particular characteristics and that differ them from the usual problems from problems. And one of them is their complexity. So they typically cannot be broken down into separate smaller chunks to be solved. And they are uncertain, so that they have a lot of stakeholders and with differing opinions, so that it's not as straightforward to find a solution. And they are value laden, so there are usually few pre-existing solutions to them, to these kind of challenges. So that's why as we have been discussing, a transformative or a different kind of thinking is needed for tackling these large-scale, uncertain, value-laden problems.
The values that you're saying, it's also a point that these values have to be constantly developed by us, taught and retaught, as also our standards are shifting. and hopefully we are making some progress in our values.
And even just recognizing that technologies have values embedded in them is already a big step, I would say.
When we are observing the teaching of the sustainability challenge, there are these very nice approaches that say, okay, let's see how different parts of the world struggle with this project. Let's include students from different parts of the world and see how in their community some technology will affect the further development. So maybe it's great to have an electric car, but if some country has to mine for lithium, maybe that's not so great. And stories like that, or what global south would say to the global north, of course under the caveats, this distinction. Well, you already got rich by exploiting and polluting, or you are abusing us for your future exploiting and polluting because your policies and laws don't allow this to happen in your countries, or whatever the argument will be, but it will just show more complexities about that. And what is your take on it? Do you try also to think of how students can be more aware of the global impacts and the inclusion of global perspectives in the sustainability challenge?
Yeah, a lot of critique exists in literature on education. So the critique is on in the Western education systems. A lot of the time, the focus is on the economic growth, especially in technical universities, and on this reductionist approach that I mentioned before. And this is critique, and the critique is that sort of this colonial legacy that there's a call to decolonize the curriculum and decolonize. And part of this decolonization is to consider and include in the curriculum alternative viewpoints that do not necessarily focus on economic growth, that do not focus on the reductionist approaches, that help students, at least just by exposing them to alternative ideas from other countries, from other regions of the world or the global south. Even that would foster reflexivity and the acknowledgement of politics of knowledge. So knowledge is political, and it depends. So the way you are being educated is also structured by certain political forces, and so this is one of the critiques. In what I see on education for sustainability, and particularly in engineering education, there are two big kind of approaches, or two big directions of what to do about it, how to improve education. And one is indeed to be, as I mentioned, to be more plural, in the sense that you, as an engineer or as a whatever professional, you are able to speak. Well, first of all, you're reflexive of the fact that you have values and you have beliefs and you have assumptions. And then to be reflexive, or to be able actually to speak across your own field, your own discipline. Well, that's not such a problem, I don't think, with most people. But what is a problem is to be able to speak beyond your discipline. So in the case, for example, of engineers, that would be the ability to communicate and to work with social scientists and communities, like just lay people who are not engineers. Because a lot of the time, the critique of working with communities is that they are not specialists. What can they contribute to our project that is an engineering project or a municipal project on the issue? And in fact, they are an important stakeholder. So that's one. type of stakeholders, so beyond your discipline, with communities, and having an intrinsic value of nature, actually. So treating nature as an actor in a way, in a limited or whatever sense, seriously, treating nature seriously, intrinsically, not as a resource. That's one big direction. So kind of has to do with relationship to self, relationship to others, to peers, to beyond your peers, to nature. And another direction of where should education go is attention to long term. A lot of the time, especially in engineering schools, so there are a lot of empirical studies who say that a lot of the time engineers are being implicitly or explicitly guided towards short-term thinking.
I hope that from all this you realized how value-loaded these questions are.
I definitely realize that.
And how important it is to teach the values, teach the proper attitudes, develop them, instill them in our students, and not, to finish on a funny note, not to just let ChatGPT give them answers what their values should be and how they should think of it, but that it is our responsibility of educators to really do that. And on the other hand, that there is a lot of room for us formative room for us in education, but also formative room for ourselves as educators to improve.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Vlasta.
Thank you so much, Zachary. It was a great pleasure.
Great.